Welcome to Finding the Frame. I'm Xander Meller, and this is the show where we practice discernment through dialogos. So I have conversations with guests, and we try and find what's true, good, and beautiful in each other. We discern that, but also in what we're doing at the moment. And this is uh, what we're up to, and this is what we're going to do today. And today I have a lovely guest, Kara. Kara, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, um, I'm a YouTuber, also writer, poet, and a musician at the same time, um,
Yeah.
and a lot of everything, basically.
Mhm. Open to new experiences, one might say.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. If talking about ocean, it's like on Big Five, yeah, highly open, high in openness.
Yeah, I openness. And also, um, one of my favorite people. We've only known each other a short time, but you're one of my favorite people to collaborate with because you're so conscientious as well. It's very rare that I get someone who's like on top of everything and has like I can trust to make appointments and that. And it's very refreshing. So it's that's wonderful as well. Um, yeah. So you have been doing this YouTube thing for quite some time, and I've done podcasts and things in the past before, but I'm sort of like getting back into it. And something that struck me uh ab- about this, it because right now I'm doing dialogos and I'm really trying to get people to reconnect with their essence and what what's authentic about them. And to do that, like a big part of dialogos is to have this loving relationship, this sort of charitable relationship, and that means you need to connect with people and share part of yourself, right? Because things have to be real, things have to have this authenticity to them. But there's a challenge when you're doing things on the internet that you need to also protect your privacy, right? Because you're not just having a conversation. I'm not just having a conversation with you, Cara. I'm also we're doing this in front of a big audience of people who are sympathetic or who mean well to us, but also people who may not, right? And uh, so you have to protect yourself, but at the same time, you want to share enough of yourself that you're being real and authentic. And I think that's a real challenge. And I was wondering like some of the ways that maybe you found that you can connect with your audience.
Well, I ask myself several questions.
Mm,
Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I do a YouTube channel at all? And what motivates me to get out there and talk? And yeah, helping others to understand others, basically.
mm,
It's kind of this vague idea which I'm following. People keep seeing only limited kind of imaginary person, let's say. They don't see the truth, who you are behind the, let's say, that facade.
mm,
And a YouTube channel is that facade.
mm.
And yet I'm doing it to for people to connect and understand each other. So it's like
Yeah.
really complicated idea. And now, how do I protect my privacy as well at the same time? And it's just understanding the way I'm thinking and understanding the way others are thinking does not require me giving my personal information as like what's my address, what's my real name and stuff like that. Yeah, Kara is a pseudonym. That's why people cannot find me. And like I had been accused of being a spy. Like, yeah, great.
Yeah, but yeah.
Uh, well, it's not that difficult to find out, but it would require massive commitment. And I don't
Mhm.
think I will ever get that popular. I just want
Yeah. I just
something.
I want to sort of connect that too, because I think you said something like you want to be authentic. It's specific like why are we on YouTube? And I feel that I'm sort of too. I'm trying to get people to connect to their authentic selves, or something
Mhm.
real, right? And I think one of the reasons, like, it makes it a complicated puzzle for us, but there's lots of people who aren't on YouTube who are very successful and doing things that people like, who don't have that as a goal necessary to connect people to something real. Either, I don't want to just pass people off as wanting to be famous or something like that. There are people who are just after the fame and attention, but there's
Mhm.
also uh, like people who see it as a game or a challenge, right? Who want to actually just become as popular as they want to. Like, just there's it's an interesting puzzle, YouTube, like going against the algorithm and finding out what's going on. But talking about that authenticity, it struck me, and it was partly because of something I saw. And I don't follow pop culture that much, but there's this Andrew Tate guy, and he's having a fight with Paul Logan, or Logan Paul. Have you heard about this?
Logan Paul. Yeah.
Logan Paul. Okay, yeah. So, um, they're both people who have like this huge facade, right? They've invested, they're wealthy, they're very successful, but they're very much engaged with this external, what you call like a mask or performance. And they're, fighting something on YouTube. And it occurred to me, is like, it's sort of a way of protecting your privacy if you uh become the persona, or if part of you becomes fake, right? If your life becomes a show, then you are sort of protecting who you are, right? If you're actually engaged in this, you become the show, right? So like Paul Logan and Andrew Tate, they sort of like, um they're always performing, like they start, the private persons just sort of disappears, and now like their whole life is a performance. So they let people in their house and that, but their house is a performance. It's they have all these things that are sort of not necessarily connected to maybe authentically who they are, but also um like uh all part of the show of who they want to be. Do you maybe sort of see what I'm getting at there, or that?
Yeah. So playing a role is a part of protecting privacy.
Yeah.
And yet again, I understand a role is a tool
Mm.
which you use to achieve something. So the goal is to get as many views as possible, to get people attention to you as much as possible. And for that, there is a tool which would be to be that persona, that gesture of let me
Hmm.
throw glitter at you and stuff.
Yeah. You become the glitter.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But I let me contrast it with Russell Brand, who is
Okay. Yeah,
doing
that's a good contrast. That's an excellent contrast.
he does also a little bit of that, but he
Hmm.
uses it as a tool to talk about something he believes in.
Yeah.
He like Under the Skin, quite interesting podcast he has.
Yeah.
He had Jordan on. The reason why you do it, why do you use the tool of that? I could do that to uh, to get views, let's say. But the question is, what type of views would I attract?
Hmm.
For the message I'm trying to bring into the world, that persona, that like
Yeah.
glittery, shiny, doesn't work. Russell Brand, he gathered his fans who grew up with him, let's say.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
he
an
also
interesting way. Yeah,
but he also has this sort of uh he has a redemption arc of his own, right? Because there's
yeah,
definitely a part, like, where he in his life, like, he used to be a drug addict, and well, he
sex
was a
addict.
successful actor and comedian, right? So he started out
Mhm.
in this more um performance for performance sake persona, right? Like, so maybe he started out more like an Andrew Tate or a Logan Paul, but he somewhere along the line, he realized that this wasn't who he was, or it was killing him on the inside. Like he wasn't being his true self, or he was in an identity crisis and a meaning crisis, and he's coping with that with drugs and other sort of abuses.
Mm-hmm.
And he made some sort of internal transformation, but he still managed to integrate that um performer side of himself into who he became, if that makes sense. So now I think he does find meaning. It's not just an act. Like he really does find meaning and enjoy what he does in connecting with people in his audience. But
Mm-hmm.
he has, you're right. He's managed to integrate that the glitter of himself
Mm-hmm.
into the new personality, which is really quite
So
impressive. Or
he
character.
directed. Yes.
Yeah, because there's character in the character in that is completely performative, but you also need to build your own character, right? You have it as a person. Like I think there's things you have to build your conscience, and people don't talk about conscience anymore. I think um conscience is really important, and actually like refining your conscience. So not something informing your conscience, but also your character, which is sort of like
Yeah.
a more holistic thing of who you are. And it's not just performative, even though there's a performative aspect to it, because it's about how you're connecting to other people. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So character growth, let's say, I, if if I'm not mistaken, Logan Paul was a
Yeah, he was one of
uh,
the Disney kids, I
Disney
think.
kids. Like he used to have a horse head even at some shows. I think,
Okay.
like if I'm not mistaken him. And then I learned about him because I'm a fan of Cody Ko. Shout out Cody Ko. He's watching. And Cody had this kind of beef with him as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how also Cody kind of got like by having beef, and Logan Paul was crying how he's being bullied by older people on YouTube. And Cody was like, I'm
Yeah.
not that much older. And like it was funny, but it had no meaning somehow.
Yeah.
But it did gather views. So I
Mm-hmm.
keep watching, by the way, Kojiko, the fan, and he's always like, why am I doing this? So he gets into this identity crisis already as he approached 30.
Mm-hmm.
So he started changing. So he used to do cringe videos. He still does them, but he's like always, why am I doing this? And I like it. I see the transformation of the character where it
Mm-hmm.
transforms, where he starts using his platform for teaching people about something. So what Cody did, he started recording his training for marathons. He did marathons. He
Oh,
talked
okay.
about how to prepare his body, health. So he
Mm-hmm.
goes into that. And this what I see as a potential for kids who grew up on stage. Let's say like Logan Paul, he doesn't know it otherwise.
Yeah.
He received love through views.
Mm.
That's the thing. Like that's his whole motivation.
But there's also like Logan Paul, I think like he's also and I don't watch the channel, I don't know what's actually on there, but there's this transition to he's become more of this online fighter, right? And I think that like the fights are, although there's in the fight world there's lots of glitter, as you say, like lots of performance. The fights are real, and he's really training for them. So I think that like the marathon, there's sort of like he has sort of found a self-improvement thing that he's doing within that sphere,
Oh.
right? So I think there's he has a bit of that journey too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but something I also wanted sort of to touch on. Have you heard the term kayfabe before? It's something that Eric Weinstein popularized, and it's from um the professional wrestling, the North American professional wrestling um
I haven't heard
world.
that term.
And from Carney's world from before that. So what kayfabe is a mixing of uh reality and performance, like reality and fakery.
Oh.
And it's something that professional wrestlers started doing and or had to do because wrestling has these two properties to it. both a it's has it's highly dangerous. There's a high risk factor, but it's also very boring to watch. So there's long periods where nothing happens, punctuated like periods where things are very dangerous. Um, and because like if you're actually doing the wrestling, because a lot of time you're doing this grappling and nothing seems to happen, and then but all of a sudden someone could flip you or you could lose your body weight, and then it's like, oh, you can really hurt yourself, right? If you when you're really wrestling. So kayfabe was introduced, or the fakery was introduced to the wrestling, where the wrestling actually became fake, partly to make it more interesting to the audience, because then they're doing all these dynamic moves and things, so it looks more interesting. But also, it's much safer for the wrestlers because the wrestlers know what to expect in the fight, and they can prepare for they're prepare for each other what's going to happen. So it makes a better performance that they're that it's fake, and in a sense the audience also has an understanding that it's fake. But the kayfabe comes in when they start mixing the reality of who they are and their relationships with the fakery, right? And then it layers like a cake. So there's like real on fake on real on fake, right? So for example, um, there's relationships between like male and female wrestlers that maybe started out fake as part of the performance because they have these dramas around the store shows, but then it became real, and like the actors, the wrestlers or actors, who knows, right? They end up becoming married, right? And but even though the relationship has become real, so they're actually now like in love and married, they still have this whole performance aspect. So there's whole aspects of what they're putting out there that is still fake. So there's a sort of like layer cake of real and fake, or like a mixture of real fake, and that's kayfabe. And I realized that it's like with that, in wrestling, there's the physical protection, but it also in a sense protects the privacy of who you are, because as from the audience perspective, you can't really tell what's real or fake. And then YouTube, I think, or social media also creates a similar kind of kayfabe for the exact same reason, right? Because if like Andrew Tate or Logan Paul, um, or I'm sorry, the other guy you mentioned, they had like, if they were just leading ordinary lives like I lead for most of my day, it's probably pretty boring to watch. And so you need to spice it up with some performance to make it interesting, because they share so much of like their daily life, right? If they didn't live in like a ridiculously big house, or and do stupid things on camera sometimes, then it wouldn't you couldn't watch. It'd be like that boring wrestling. But there's also dangers if you're being too authentic. People can know things about you that they can use to hurt you, and it's not just like your dress and things like that, but if you share too much of what makes you tick, right, with people, then they can say things that can really hurt you. They can know what you can reveal so much of yourself, and you make yourself vulnerable, because then people know what your potentially your weaknesses are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I I understand
I
that.
I took it sort of in a bunch of different places. Maybe I should have given it to you before I
No, it's okay.
had
I
it such a
gathered
complete
it
thought.
in a net.
Yeah.
So about seeing people as potential that might hurt you,
Mm.
uh, it is wise to take into consideration the possibility, um, as long as it doesn't stop you from doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like it's just another data you add to your calculation. Let's say
Mm.
when you go into performance, in front of the audience,
Yeah.
in front of the crowd. I hold on, Alexandra.
Okay.
I had this conversation in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was with Manuel. I don't know, shut up, Manuel.
Okay.
Where we talked about seeing people, all people, uh, as audience, as spectators of you. And he was like, "Do you see other people as spectators of the star that you are?" And I do see people as spectators. I do see them as audience. But now try to understand what audience is for me. Audience for me is like that necessity. They are others. They're the society. They are the people. So we could not agree what audience is, even on the term.
Mm.
Let's say for him, audience, it was things being used for me to feel better about myself,
Oh, really?
or like to achieve. Yes, it's at the beginning. It's when we discussed what it is being a performer actually.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm a child performer. So I was like, since I was 4 years old, I was put on stage, much like Logan, and I'm
Okay.
not to that scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what it's like to not to get attention, let's say, from anyone, and then being told you are special now here, and 300 people will pay attention to you,
Mm-hmm.
and how that feels. Um, it is addictive. But the teacher that I had, he told me, they are not there to give you attention. You are here to serve them.
Mm.
You are here to make their day better.
Mm-hmm.
So the audience for me is not that crowd that come there to adore me or to listen to me talk. They are people for whom I'm trying to make their day better.
Mm.
I'm They are sad, let's say, they have problems, and I have to give enough glitter for them to forget about all their problems. I have to be a magician for 3 minutes, will take it away.
That's
I
interesting. Yeah.
understand how it works. Now the question is why Logan does it. Let's say Logan
Mm.
Paul. Uh, does he want to serve the people? Does he want to make their day better? Is that
Mm-hmm.
his main purpose? Does he want to make them healthier? So that makes all the difference for me. Why
Mm-hmm.
do you do it? So again, audience and other people on YouTube who also might potentially hurt you. You are here to serve them, let's say. You are here to make their day better. And yes, admitting that, listen, I have a private life that I wish to protect because I value
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Mm.
when I say protect, I don't mean you will hurt it, but there is a large number of you, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my entire audience of 20 people. Yeah, one bad apple, and you all have seen the news, like
Mm-hmm.
an Instagram model got her head cut off by
Mm-hmm.
Uber driver or something like that.
Yeah.
There are things like that happen, and I still like that hiding your private persona is a necessity, a necessity in order to continue serving people.
Mm.
It's something that I have to do so I continue my work. Yeah.
That's yeah, there's a couple interesting things there. A point I just wanted to make, it maybe it's a bit lost. I hope it's not too much of a giant segment, but this idea of like ways you're protecting yourself when you're being the performance. I think if you're being your authentic self and people sort of take it the wrong way, right? Then in a sense they're rejecting you, right? So if they treat you like a clown, but you're not clowning, for example, then you know that then they're taking you not the way you intended to be, and that can hurt. So there's sort of a sense of like if you act clownish, if you are doing the performance, then however they react to it, they're not really reacting to the true you, they're reacting to the performance, right? So if you are acting clown like a clown and they act like a acting clownish, then then all that's good. But if you're acting clownish and they don't, even if they reject it at some level, they don't like it, then they're still not rejecting you. They're just rejecting your performance, right? So if you're authentic, there's that higher risk. And this is not just sort of like a the privacy thing, but there's that as well. So I think that's a danger, because I don't think it's necessarily all of why people protect or don't be authentic on YouTube or when they're performing is um as dramatic as you're saying about that Instagram model getting her head cut off, right? There's ways people, can damage your private life if without even like even um or change your attitudes towards your private life maybe, or affect it in ways that aren't as stalkery or dramatic like that. Uh but yeah, so I think there's that aspect to it. But I really like what you had to say about like serving the audience. And this is actually the big challenge, because we had when I went on your show, um I talked about First Corinthians 13 a lot, and how in order to create dialogos, or to have a loving relationship, to really have discernment, you need to have a loving relationship. And what I want to do is um practice discernment through dialogos, and show people how that's done. But I can only really do that if I can have that connection, right? So I'm trying to create that connection with you, that charitable connection, um, where I'm paying attention, listening what you're saying, and that affects what I say. And then I go back to you, and hopefully, and I have that, I feel like I have that connection with you, and you're doing the same for me, and I'm very grateful that we can do this. Um, but I can't do that with the YouTube audience, because I don't have much live feedback with them. I know that a lot of live streamers will have like the chat streaming by, and I think that can they can have some sort of interaction with that matrix code like chat that goes by if you're the professional streamer. And there's ways of creating that dialogos with people, with your audience, right? And Jordan Peterson, he explains what he's doing all the time, and he does that, right? So he actually sort of tries to read the zeitgeist, like the spirit of the audience when he's doing these live talks and performances. So what he does is he does two things that are very interesting, and most speakers don't. First, when he's on stage talking and he's doing his sort of stream of consciousness thing, like that he's famous for, he will actually zero in and talk to specific people in the audience. So he's always engaging with their face, and that's one of the reasons why I'm going forward as much as possible. Rules can be broken, but I'm going to try and have conversations with people where I can see their faces, right, as the minimum, because I want that connection, because there's so much of nonverbal body language is important. So he tries to see the audience members. He looks at individual people as he's talking and watches for their reaction, right? How are they engaged with what I'm saying? What are they saying? But he's also listening to the audience as a whole. And what he says he listens for when he's talking is silence, right? Because if silence means that they're engaged in listening. And it's sort of interesting as a speaker or a person who's tried to public speak all his life, because silence can be really scary. But and this idea that no, silence is what you're looking for, because if the audience is rustling and making noise, they're not really paying attention to you, or they're starting to think about other things. It's only when they're really engaged with what's happening on the stage that you're going to get silence. So yeah, but those are ways of gauging audience feedback, and it's not necessarily, and sort of in some sense putting in proxies for that loving relationship, or having a limited loving relationship. And it's really hard on social media, especially when we're like recording in advance like this. I'm just, we're shooting it out like a ballistic missile, right? Like it's gonna go out there, and then it will be received. So we don't really know what the audience is going to react to it. We can only sort of anticipate that, sort of set our trajectory, but really and this is why, this is the way I see to get dialogues out there, is I have to have this conversation with you, because then I have a way of gauging and finding that loving relationship that creates discernment, that helps us find what's true, good and beautiful, um, uh, with at least one person. Like, and I can show that to other people, if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does. It's I have two podcasts. One of them
Okay.
is line by line,
Okay.
where I engage in a conversation about song lyrics with my guests.
Hmm.
Or we also analyze Corinthians, which is also lyrics, like
Yeah.
it can be sung. And but there is another one. It's a vlog sort of thing where I
Hmm.
have to be alone and I have to talk about something. And I have so many ideas what to talk about, and I just don't do it because there is no one else. I cannot get the feedback from the audience, so I
Mm.
absolutely understand. And me talking to myself, I do it all the time. And so like it's nothing special. I entertain the idea. It's just like putting it out there seems like too many things in process. But talking to somebody else, hearing out what they have to say and how they are seeing, also the things people notice in a conversation sometimes amaze me. Like I haven't seen it this way.
Mm.
They like another person fills in the gaps always
Yes.
somehow. Like you already know what you know. You know
Yeah.
what you're thinking.
I think that's
And
one. Sorry.
yeah.
So like uh, Jesus, the Last Supper, like he has the bread, which is his body, right? Which is the good, the true, and the beautiful. And he breaks it up and he gives it to everyone. And I think a big part of the symbolism or of the reason for that is to just show that, no, look, it's like you're all partial sinners, but you all also, you've been given part of what's good, true, and beautiful, right? So you have to wait, you have to find it in each other. You have to come together. And that's and to tie to what Jordan, yeah, right. So it's not, if you want to become whole, you can't do it by yourself because you only have a piece of the puzzle. You have to get experience other people's pieces of the puzzle as well and bring them together. And that's part of it. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why Jordan Peterson's, one of his rules, I forget the number. I'm not that big of a fan these days, but the one of the rules, and it's one of the best ones, I think, is treat other people, listen to other people like they have something to tell you, or you have something to learn from them, right? They have something important to say for you. And that's exactly it, is that discernment you need to find. um yeah, that we have to get everyone's piece of that good puzzle, because it's going to surprise us. We're going to see things that we completely don't expect, like you said.
Hmm. That sharing thing, it made me think about Rick and Morty. I
Okay.
don't know. So there was in the last seasons there was an episode where Morty gets into a video game
Hmm.
and pieces of his soul, they are spread throughout all the NPCs. All
Okay.
of them get a piece of his soul. And in order to get out of the game, he has to gather all of them together.
Oh,
And
interesting.
only then, and and then he can come back to his body somehow.
Okay.
So it was amazing. They didn't call it a soul. I think they called it consciousness.
Hmm.
But it's something symbolically reminded me of Last Supper and bread sharing. You
Yeah.
get a piece of Jesus's kind of bread
Yeah.
inside you, but in order to get out, in order to find that consciousness and get it to one body, you have to all come together.
Yeah.
It was symbolically actually Rick and Morty. There is so much symbolism in it,
Yes. Is
like so
interesting
many
because
parallels.
but it's
Mhm.
also like, I think there's a nihilism and cynicism to it too. Like fundamentally, I think it's nihilistic, and that sort of turns me
Uh,
off. But I think you're right that, that they do have a lot of good, profound ideas in there, and symbolism. So I mean,
well,
yeah, I have mixed feelings about Rick and Morty. There's some really good
mhm.
episodes. And there's like you said, there's things like that, and then there's stuff it's sort of like, oh, but then you have to make it so nihilistic every season. Yeah.
Dude, like again, the tool.
Hmm.
The nihilism is a tool which is to be used to attract certain audience members.
Hmm.
Also, that idea was coined in Madea movies. So Madea is that funny lady. It is a comedy. It
Hmm.
relaxes people, but then it raises a lot of really important points. It talks about a lot of social issues while people are relaxed and
Hmm.
enjoying the glitter of the
Yeah.
comedy. So, and joining comedy with the ideas is an excellent tool. I still like Rick and Morty. I
Hmm.
actually understand their idea. Yes, nihilism is one thing. Like you should not joke about those things.
Mm.
But yeah, like as a parody,
Oh,
um, it's excellent.
yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to say it in a wanted to put a limit on it,
Mhm.
like say, oh, you shouldn't joke about that, right? That all because
Uh,
I do like yeah, so we're getting into like this whole like the whole postmodernism talk deconstruction.
mhm.
Um, but like
Yeah.
I grew up on Monty Python a lot. Like I'm a big fan of
Yeah,
Monty
me
Python, and actually
as well. Flying Circus,
yeah,
Life of Brian. Like,
the TPV Dragula name that I use is actually from Douglas Adams, like the Hitchhiker's
mhm.
Guide to the Galaxy,
Awesome.
right? And um also comedy that is postmodern has this postmodern deconstructivist flair, right?
Hmm.
And but he says very profound things. In fact, I'd have to revisit it, but for the longest time I thought like Douglas Adams is uh gives like this profound philosophy. He deals with all these philosophical issues
Hmm.
in his writing, and for the most part, there's so much wackiness and comedy going on that you don't even notice that he's introducing these very deep, profound ideas. And I thought like is this something like if I was making a literature list, an English literature list for all the schools, I think that I would make Douglas Adams required reading for middle school because
Hmm.
of that, right? Because of it's a way of introducing philosophy and getting kids thinking deeper, um, but with lots of glitter, right? Like you're saying, like the glitter thing. So yeah, so I can sort of see that Rick and Morty is definitely has that aspect to it, and that's one of the reasons that makes it popular with audiences. Is it's not just it has like you say like the nihilism the nihilism and the bathroom humor, like the being
Hmm.
sort of is sort of necessary to grab people of this age. Like the kids now, they sort of expect and require that. That's sort of the entry level. But what's really capturing them, like why it is the cultural phenomenon that it is because it's also putting in these these deeper meaning ideas in there. It's sneaking them in, and it has, like you said, the symbolism in there. So there's more going on. It's not just glitter. There's not just this veneer. There's actually and it's not even like the J.J. Abrams mystery box stuff, which I
Hmm.
also loathe. But there is actual gems of beauty and truth hidden in Rick and Morty and put in ways that the audience can engage with and soak up. So even though people are going because it brings them the joy of the comedy and part of the comedy that they're used to and what it gives them is the nihilistic stuff because that's the age we're in. There, what's retaining the audiences is that there's also the good, the true, and the beautiful hidden there as well. Does that make sense? I'm sort of like,
Yes, yes. I want to add to your point because uh, I read a book and I told
mhm,
my mom all about the book. And she said, "Do you remember that part?" And then she told me that part. And I was like, "No." "Did you understand that part?" And then she quoted the part. I said, "No." She's like, "Read it again." So the book was Master and Marguerite by Bulgakov. I read it 10 times. it's amazing. And each time I read it, I find new ideas, new things
Hmm.
that I haven't noticed. And perhaps Rick and Morty, if a person isn't ready to look for it and only focusing on nihilism, it will see only that in Rick and
Hmm.
Morty, the danger. And I'm not talking about the nihilism as inspiration, but if you watch it as an educator, so you have, you're watching it and like, will that passage influence somebody in a bad way? So you're looking as an educator and you will focus on the things that might be potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
So you have this, I'm an educator filter. Um,
Actually, that's very true because I do find
mhm,
Rick and Morty funny. Like I like it engaging, but
mhm,
I won't let my kids watch it. And part of the reason I won't let my kids watch it is because the veneer is
mhm,
nihilistic, and I know like uh my daughter, like she gets a
mhm,
little she can understand the deep symbolism and things. She has a very good intuitive. My son, he tends to pick up on the surface level, even though he's very smart. He tends to sort of not see things as deeply. So I feel like I would worry that he would just get the nihilistic message out of it, right? Like he wouldn't actually notice all the other things that are going on, and I would be
mhm.
concerned like, about presenting that as something that I approve of as a father. I think, when they're older, I don't mind them watching it, but right now I think my role is to put things forward and say, no, this is stuff, this is the good stuff, right? These are things
Mhm.
that are on a more surface level are helping you build character and and teaching you about virtue, and this is what you should be aspiring for. We can get into the more complicated measure um
Mhm.
um the more complicated measuring and the layered stuff as you get older, if that makes sense.
It does.
Hmm.
Although independent thinking, uh, imagine, I remember Jordan talked about how he noticed that his son watching over and over again a part of Pinocchio where he's being swallowed by the
The
big
whale.
shark. I mean,
Yeah.
it's called, it is actually
The
what
big
I
fish.
checked it out. I checked it out. It was a shark.
Oh, okay. In the original story, it makes more sense
Yes.
the whales don't actually generally eat people. It's
Yeah,
just they're big.
I had to look it up. I mean, it's a belly of the beast, let's say.
Yeah, it is a belly of the beast. Yeah.
So and his son kept watching it over and over and over again. And Ron was like, that's interesting. Like he let him. A child tries to understand and to come to terms with those scary things. He had to watch it many times. It's like um, I can give another example of myself, not Jordan's
Mm.
son. I bungee jumped. It
Okay.
was so scary. Everything again. It like it. I made myself to jump.
Mm.
Like I had to shut down my fear and jump. And then I had to do it again and again because uh, I needed to break it. Like I had to
Mm.
force myself to understand that there is a rope, there is you're jumping into nothing. You might die. And I had to try it again and again until I understood it and until I felt comfortable with it.
Hmm.
And then it did not give me rush anymore. Then like I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Like I conquered that beast.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm not sure we can completely um, uh, filter out the bad
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. No, yeah, that's not my goal. And I
Uh,
think that's definitely not my goal. Um, because I'm as Jordan Peterson talks about is like I'm trying to make them strong, right? I'm so I don't want I, I want to expose them to the world in a way that they can process it well, and it makes them stronger. So I don't want
mhm,
to, so the dangers are more along the lines of I don't want to overwhelm them, give them something that overwhelms them, but I
mhm,
still want to make sure the world's challenging for them. I never want them to feel completely safe, right? I don't want them to get the safe space mentality where there's something they're always rushing to, and
Mm-hmm.
they've, um uh and that's their expectation of life. I want them to go and engage with things. So I definitely don't try and dissuade or take away their that spirit of exploration or finding things on their own. And if I see them wrestling with something, I
Mm-hmm.
encourage it, right? It's more of, so there's the overwhelming. I don't want them to
Mm-hmm.
be overwhelmed and have a negative, like, and feel completely crushed.
Mm-hmm.
But um I think there's also, like, as the father figure, as their
Mm-hmm.
father, so the father figure, I also have to, like, set a good example, or make judgments about the world, help them see that I'm leading them somewhere. There's something that I endorse, right? I there's a message I should be sponsoring, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
connected to Christ and the good
Yeah.
message. So I have to be sort of I have to be guiding them in the faith. And I fully expect them to rebel against me in certain points and want to go and explore the world and come back. But and I understand that, like, it's a phase that I certainly went
Mm-hmm.
through. I That would be a huge story in itself, but um, I I want to just say that I need to, for them, be that sort of representative of Christ, right? Like I want to actually connect it to the Christian virtues. There's the divine virtues of faith, hope, and love,
Mm-hmm.
but we use to discern, and those are seen in Christ in the Trinity. But from that are the actual cardinal Christian virtues that are basically the hallmarks um of Christian formation, of good Christian formation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're words that people uh don't even experience this. Is I think actually a lot of native English speakers, I would be surprised if half of native English speakers know the meanings of these words, but they're cardinal virtues of Christianity. Temperance and prudence are two of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then the other two are have also been sort of warped by modern society. Is justice, is in Christianity, was an individual, it is first foremost an individual virtue. So it's up for every Christian to be just. It's not it We have this notion in our modern society that justice is something we outsource to the state, right? That justice is something that we outsource, and we expect from the courts or the city, from government. Government is where justice comes from. It's not individuals, but it's about, in Christianity, just individual justice is key. A father must be just, and must cultivate in himself the virtue of justice, so that he can be just to his family, but also just in the world, right? And it's sort of like, this is just I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but it's an important one. It's like, how would we possibly expect the state to be just if we do not put effort into creating, like, cultivating just men and justice in for every teaching every Christian to be just? Like, how would you have a just society if there are no just men, like, who are creating and building that society, right? The fourth one is fortitude, which is also which is you can think of as resilience, and think people only really know the meaning of fortitude in any sense because it's often like a stat in video games. But where is it going out, these cardinal virtues of moderation, uh, is that I have to I have to be an example of them. I have to lead them down the path towards that, right? So that's part of me being um the best father I can be, or to be a good father, is I have to be the one who's sort of rooting for Christ and showing them that there is a good path, even though I know that they're going to rebel and go their own way. my job is to sort of be that, keep the home fires burning, so that guides them back to what's that I can be a guidepost back to what's good when they do decide, or when they do need to find their way home. That makes sense.
Yeah. As a father, your role is, even though you know, and it's heartbreaking to know that your children might fall down,
Hmm.
as a father, you need to teach them to get up and keep moving.
Yes.
That's the best role. And the tool for it is, right now the best, which is available and agreed upon to a large number of society, is those values, the Christian values that you
Hmm.
just named. And here's like, listen, guys, there is like, for centuries, people worked on this. This is a tool. It's a faith. It's those virtues. Here is how you get up, and it's
Yeah.
great. It's actually an excellent. There is a reason why they are, in the
Hmm.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good, how is it called, cornerstone.
Yeah. Cornerstone. They use the
It's a
cornerstone
good
analogy.
cornerstone. Rebelliousness. Well, these things that you told, all of it, if they see it, they will see a father who keeps thinking and worrying sick about their future and keeps like, how can I do it? Dude, that's amazing. That's
Hmm.
already in itself is a big thing.
Hmm.
And it's rare.
Well,
Imagine
yeah.
how many fathers don't do that.
Yeah.
They're like,
Well.
oh, Jesus, like, whew, teaspoon is delivered. Now I'm done. And
Hmm.
that's it. Because, like, what the fuck am I gonna teach? Sorry. Like,
It's fine.
what am I gonna teach that
Yeah.
child? Like, I'm a mess. And like, and there is no divine power that tells him, listen, Luke, maybe you probably could work on that. No,
Hmm.
do not be a mess. And he's like, no, 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 no. The
Yeah.
kindest thing I can do to my child is like,
Leave
be
them
out
alone.
of
I'm
their
gonna go be
life.
Andrew Tate now, or
Yes,
Logan Paul. Yeah.
Logan Paul, we are totally not bullying you. Don't cry.
Yeah.
And
But just the persona, like this is actually something. I mean, to connect it back
oh,
to good,
I
the
hope he doesn't. I hope he knows it's a persona, because
yeah.
he's a child actor. Like for me,
Mm,
I had to break out of performance for like 10 years and not to perform on stage to get out of that mindset,
mm,
because everything was a performance and all of the people I was there to serve. So was like I became extremely, uh, I don't know, like it, like my motivations were, people like, can you just like chill? That's the
yeah.
reaction sometimes I was getting from people.
Yeah, I think that's actually interesting. Like if you mix so much of like that kayfabe of the fakery of the performance with your authenticity, it becomes so much of yourself becomes the performance that you can't. It may become difficult to ever switch it off, right? Because you lose track of who you are. That's actually connects to something I tell my kids all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is like I teach them like one of the most dangerous things to do is to lie, right? Because in order to lie, you um you have to first to lie convincingly, you first have to convince yourself. You first have to make yourself really believe the lie. Like, and and if you do that too much, like the Pinocchio nose, it grows too long,
Mm-hmm.
you are separate yourself from the truth, and you've deceived yourself so much that it makes that it can trap you in hell, that you can't find your way back to the truth, right? Because that's what you need to do. Um, you find your way back to Christ. So if you stack too much deception, then you're really, putting yourself closer to hell, or putting yourself in that peril, and losing track of where you are, of how to find your way home. Because to deceive others, you
Mm-hmm.
have to deceive yourself. And I think as the performer, like if you're mixing in this performance into your authentic self, into your life, at a time, like the danger is that you can lose yourself in the performance, and you and you can, like I'm saying, trap yourself in hell because you've lost that connection with the authentic, and it can be very difficult and to find your way out of that, like to crawl back out of hell. That makes
Well,
sense.
for a child actor,
Mm,
the authentic self is the one who sits alone in the room, and
mhm,
the real self is the one alone with his thoughts, with all those overwhelming things, and the acting persona is the one who serves others. Like that child has a purpose. Your purpose is to be that, and he's like, oh my god, and people enjoy it. Oh my god, like all of that. What would a child choose as an authentic persona, so that the one who sits alone in the room stops existing over time,
mhm.
or being so unloved, or like nobody loves you, you don't like, who needs authentic you?
Yeah.
No, I want that one who everybody likes, because we do, we are social animals, and when somebody gives us a place in society, we try to hold on to that place, not the
Mm,
authentic self who is alone and without a place and like has to find meaning inside.
yeah.
So what I did is, I quit completely the stage for 10 years, and then for 10 years I did education, business, other things that helped me to build up my authentic self without needing to uh, perform for others
Mm,
completely. Like I eliminated that. So, and then I decided what else I want to do and what did I like back then. And so that's how YouTube appears. But this time I'm able to distinguish between two. So the
mm,
danger is when you are too young, so you grow into your theater persona, let's
yeah.
say.
To
The
go back.
other one is
Yeah.
boring and not interesting.
Yeah.
That's the problem with social media right now for kids. Like
Mm.
I don't think they should be, because like they become that
The
thing that they
veneer,
post.
that glitter, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's it. You get lost in it. And that's actually,
yeah.
yeah, and that's actually like the danger. And that's what we've really done with social media is we've made all our kids into performers, right? If they're going on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok and that, and all they see what gets the most views, what gets the most reward is the most glitter, right?
Yeah.
The most performance and the least in sense like the least authenticity, right? Because and I think that that's actually a danger with the really short format too, right? Where Rick and Morty, they have a lot of glitter that we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about, and but there's because they have the 30 minutes, they can actually sort of put in some real nuggets of truth as well. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're doing like a TikTok video that's has to be under, what is it, 10 seconds or 5 seconds, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure, there's only time for glitter. Like it's really hard to in that time sneak in some truth, good, and beauty into some elements that are not purely performative. Like it because there's no depth to it. It's such a brief moment. I guess it's possible. Like you truth, beauty can be almost it could be anywhere, but it's much more challenging, and it increases that glitter ratio. So yeah, so that's actually part of, yeah. So that's actually something, again, I'm with my, I go back to my kids and especially my son, is I worry about him being exposed too much to people who are performing all the time and seeing that as the normal, or what to admire. And I think part of it is the connection what you say. It's like we're a problem with how we're raising kids now is that we're putting in this world where everything is a performance, and we're effectively raising a generation of childhood performers, and pretending that that's natural or good, right? When it's really severing the connection with the authentic. So I think, yeah, I think you in a sense, maybe that's why you're taking the path that you are, because you have, at some level you're seeing that relationship of like, oh, it's like, I understand this social media thing because I was a child performer and I know how it affected me, and now I see that that this is affecting the rest of the world in
Mm-hmm.
the same way, where people are losing themselves in the performance, and they're being, social media is turning us all into performers.
Yeah, I think we can't really change that world, but we can teach the kids to get up. Let's say we can teach them to navigate through all that glitter, to
Mm.
be masters of it.
Yes.
So the thing is, first it's to teach a child understanding what the glitter is and why it's happening. So
Hmm.
that it's happening is attention grab. We need to grab as much as your attention as possible. In the past, when I was on stage performing, my role was to grab attention for a short period of time, specifically so people would forget about problems.
Mm.
So I could see people crying like it was fall of Soviet Union, and
Yeah.
like everybody lost everything. And then remember how in old times we would all gather in that little theater and local kids would perform. Let's do that. And so people would every Sunday go instead of church, because Soviet Union completely like
Mm.
removed that culture. But people would gather in theaters because the need for social gathering was still there.
Hmm.
And I was like, my role would be come out and start singing something from the old times when they felt good. So it
Mm.
would be folk song. It like, I remember like that thing and that energy of like the troubles just disappearing for some time, and
Yeah.
then they had
The
to
joy.
get out. Those people had to stand up and get back to their lives and to their reality.
Mm.
And yes, it was still hard, but there was this contrast. There was this thing, little contrast, and they knew that next time it will be maybe next Sunday, or they will have to create it for themselves.
Mm.
Like some this they have to sing for themselves. Now the times changed. Um, that little feeling, feel good, people can get all the time. They just have to swap. They don't have to go and wait till Sunday. It's
Hmm.
already there at your hand. Like, here,
Yeah.
you can just like go to YouTube and keep watching it.
In six sense intervals, you just keep on swiping in TikTok, I think, right? Like it's there's not even it just feeds you,
I
just glitter, glitter, glitter. But yeah,
it,
no, I think you're right. And that so there's two things on that. I just wanted to
Mhm,
connect because I I thought what you said is very
mhm,
poignant and glitterful, and it sort of connects to something that I heard. Milo Yiannopoulos was on Tim Pool recently, and something that he
mhm.
said I thought was the really
Oh, Miley Annapolis was recently somewhere. Last time I've seen him was
yeah, no, he's
Jordan.
this is the new
He's back.
New Catholic version of Milo, and so far he's I think he's
Oh,
quite interesting.
I
Yeah,
have to check it out. Check
yeah,
out Milo.
yeah. But the uh thing that I saw was uh that he said, he talked about how Christianity gave um gave people in Europe a way to connect with joy that was um that was constructive, not destructive. Because they, before that paganism, they'd have like this revelry in paganism, where you go out and have a party, and you'd find joyful experiences, but there'd be a cost with it, right? Where you'd be afterwards, like you'd be drunk the next day, or there's some part of you would be destroyed by this the joy that you would experience. In Christianity, um uh, gave people a way to connect with joy that was transcendent, that they but that was not destructive, like because there was the
Hmm.
wholesomeness to it, in that, so they would actually just feel energized from it. They'd find joy, and they'd be energized by the joy, and there wasn't the sort of the terrible cost of that came with revelry, or other, like the idea, like now, of going to a rave or something, like the of those kind of experiences. um so there's that, but there's also something else I wanted to connect with, is that you were talking about uh not we can't change the world, or we still have to deal with this world of glitter, and that is, I wanted to connect to that with
Hmm.
so the idea of in Christianity of this of transcendence, and that I think you need to transcend your suffering, right? So it's part of the cross that we have to bear now, is that we're in this social media world, that we've unleashed this technology, and it has, when it's used poorly, it develops a demonic nature. So we have to actually learn. uh, what I want to emphasize, though, is the idea of mastery and transcendence of this thing, of this new danger, this new sake. Because anything, like anything in the world, it can be used harmoniously with the hierarchy of being, or it can be used, it create cacophony. It can be destructive. It can become demonic and used in ways that's not intended, um uh that will lead to bad paths, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I think you're right. We can't put the genie back in the bottle, but we can learn, we can teach children how to master this. But I think that one of the aspects of that is going to be like teaching them the importance of the authentic and reality, and like you say, like explaining um the reason for the glitter is so important, or what the glitter is and why it's there, and why why it's everywhere now. That's actually, I mean, this is a whole other concept, but it's
Mm-hmm.
for people who follow the other stuff I do and get into the theology. That's the fashioning the bronze serpent, right? In Numbers, when Moses
Mm-hmm.
tells God, like, they're plagued by snakes, by the Israelites are plagued by snakes in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
This is after Exodus. They're searching for the promised land. Um, and uh, Jesus, that's what he said. Moses prays to God to ask, like, what can we do to get rid of these snakes? And he tells him, fashion a bronze serpent and stick it on a pole, right?
Oh.
And show it to all the Israelites. And
Mm-hmm.
and there's sort of like a contradiction here, because it sounds like idolatry, right? It sounds like why are
Mm-hmm.
you, like, are they worshiping the serpent? But what he's doing is he's these are the serpents. This is the evil. Like, he's fashioning the evil, like he's creating like a stereotype of saying, this is the
Mm-hmm.
thing that is plaguing you. This is what it is. This is the glitter, right? That's poisoning you, right? There's glitter all over the place, like there's snakes all over the place. This is what the glitter is. This is how it works. He's putting it on a
Mm-hmm.
pole, and he shows it to all the Israelites. And when the Israelites see it, when they see and they
Mm-hmm.
see it and they understand it, then the snakes disappear, and the venom that has been flowing through their veins and makes them sick, um,
Mm-hmm.
is cured. It's remedied, right? Because then they understand what they're dealing with, and they can avoid it, right? Is the idea. Like, that's the,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if that's the mastery
It's
of the
like
bad stereotype.
naming the beast in order to
Yeah,
conquer it.
yeah,
So he was like, "There, I named it. Here is that like dummy of that beast. There it is. You have to conquer that."
yeah,
Now,
exactly. Yeah,
so
it's
that's the reason. Hold on. The reason, like the way I started my YouTube channel, I was just going into the woods. I'm
mhm.
against all that influencer. I also might call anti-influencer.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do not promote things. I
Mhm.
promote things that are available to us, uh, free time,
Mm,
nature, those things. All the war paint on our faces. It's not necessary.
mm,
It's not necessary. People keep being those performance. It's not necessary. So the simplicity, uh, I understand that like Russell Brand like made this thing, but he goes into simplicity. Now
mm.
he's simpler, like he knows how to talk now. He uses both. So he uses the snake, let's say,
Yeah,
he uses that glitter, but
yeah,
he also tries to get back to simplicity
yeah.
as well. So
That's
he has a bee
yeah.
farm, like literally
That's mastery and integration, right? So he's managed to
integration.
integration. He's integrated the performer, like
Hmm.
that was once, is like that was once the part of him that caused him the most pain, right? This is he was the
Mm-hmm.
out of control performer. He was consuming him. He was being consumed by the performer, and that's why he turned to drugs and so forth. So in some ways he found he found his authenticity, and he started to grow that part of himself. But then he actually like attained that sort of that level of transcendence or mastery where he reintegrated the performer as well, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
so he has now he has the authentic self, and he has the performer in harmony with that authentic self. So he can draw on both.
I have mostly authentic self on YouTube,
Hmm.
but the performer will bleed. So
Yeah.
into it still, like sometimes I will switch the mode, and they will be like, "Oh, are you different?"
Hmm.
it's it's interesting.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Um,
Like the beekeeping. Yeah. No, Russell Brand
uh,
is very. I'm glad I didn't think of Russell Brand at all, but it's such a good counterexample, or and even not a counterexample, but a elaboration of
mhm.
what I was trying to get at with,
Character development.
yeah,
I don't know.
good contrast to the whole
Mhm.
thing I was trying to get at with Andrew Tate and
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul, right? And so it's perfect. Thank you. Exactly what we were talking about the everyone having a piece of the good, and someone will say something that really wows you. So that and I found I really think that we're doing well with discernment in this
Hmm.
in this conversation, because I there's been many moments where you've just said something that's wowed me, right? So I think that you've given me little pieces of the truth, and it's like, yeah, no, you get it, and let's we're moving this thing forward. So yeah, it's good.
Okay, let me come back to your snake,
Sorry,
bronze
yeah,
snake.
bronze snake.
Uh, let's say the belly of the beast and the bronze snake, a child who
Mm,
watches Pinocchio being swallowed
good
over and
connection.
over
Yeah.
in order to understand it.
Okay.
Imagine
Oh yeah,
you
that's a
showing,
connection. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just that's good connection
yeah,
to what you said before. Yes, I see where
we
you're going with
will.
this now.
I'm trying to bring it all to
Yeah.
punchline. And now, how do we conquer glitter? You have to name it to your child. You
Hmm.
sit down your child and you expose your child to that glitter completely. You expose the child, but you name the parts where he
Yeah.
has to understand. So you show the child all that stupidity. Show
Hmm.
them the even the forbidden fruit. Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Pick an episode, and
Wow.
the best one with the flying heads. It's an excellent episode. So uh,
Show me what you got.
yes,
Yeah.
it's an excellent because like it's really good satire.
Yeah.
I was wowed how well, but
I,
explain it to him.
it's also a
He
meta of what we're
yeah
talking about here, because it's all about performance, right?
yeah I'm
Yeah.
yeah like gathering all the pieces and stuff. So
Yeah.
um
Sorry, I said.
show and name the beast
Hmm.
and teach your kid because your kid will be exposed. You cannot help it, like, but
Hmm.
you have to teach him to think for himself.
Yeah.
and and unfortunately there is no time when he's ready.
Mm.
He's ready
Yeah.
now. uh, Name it independently, but think like my mom told me, Mom, I read the book, and she was like, read it again,
Hmm.
uh, and then I again, and then until I started bringing up things. Before that she's like, do you remember that? No, I did not pay attention. But then I
Mm.
read it many times until I started bringing up things. Make him do homework on it. Like, listen,
Hmm.
dude, what did you learn from that? And he will tell you, oh my God, I learned that. I really like that song that Rick and Morty performed. Like some, I don't know, Move Your Body
Hmm.
or something. I don't remember. It was a funny, catchy tune, but with no meaning.
Hmm.
And then watch again. The same fucking episode. Watch again and
Hmm.
see what did you learn? What did you notice? And then if a child becomes somebody who understands what's in between the lines of the message,
Hmm.
the child will be ready for the world
Mm.
because he will be able to spot things. It's good to put it in a frame of virtues. Yeah, it's an excellent idea.
Mm.
So here are the virtues that you need to look for. Do you spot those virtues that I, Father, teach you? I
Hmm.
taught you those four virtues. Do you see them in that episode? And the child vlouches, and do not show the episode and say, no, there are no virtues. Find those virtues in that episode. If you will
Hmm.
teach a child, it's like me finding virtues in Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
That's when you will teach your child correctly. So
Yeah.
the message and the divine is in the glitter. Logan has it. Andrew Tate has it. But they are so hidden in a
Yeah.
child in a dark room in there that you cannot see them. But
Yeah.
when you teach your child to find them, like spot Waldo, but spot the virtue
Yeah.
in Rick and Morty, inside the belly of the beast, spot the virtue inside the belly, and that's
Mm.
an excellent point. Like there is virtue
Yeah.
inside that belly. There
That's
is
yeah.
virtue in the snake.
Yeah. Well, that's actually that's the discernment of that's what you're talking about now is discernment,
Mhm.
right? Is because that's exactly like I tell them like life is a Where's Waldo puzzle, but it's really uh the book Where's Waldo,
Yeah.
but it's actually a Where's Jesus puzzle, right? So it's instead of looking for Waldo, you're looking
Mhm.
for Jesus. You're looking for the good, the true, and the beautiful in all
Yeah.
things, right? So
So
and
you
and
have it all inside already. You just have to spot it.
yeah.
But teach them to spot it inside glitter.
Yeah, well,
Okay, like
that's where it's you have to that's where it's hardest to spot, right? Is in a sense like that's when you're saying the glitter. Oh, I see what you're saying. I was thinking is like that that's where discernment really has to go because it's so when things are distracted from the authentic, you actually have to look harder to find
yeah.
the authentic. But you're also sort of saying like no, like look for the reasons for the glitter and how the glitter
Mm-hmm.
can be used well so that sort of teach mastery of the glitter and how the glitters could be used poorly. Is that what more or
Yeah.
less you're getting at?
Yes, yes, exactly. You spot on.
Yeah. Yes, no, and that's actually like when you get to the bronze snake thing in the belly of the
Mm-hmm.
whale. Um, so there's a that's this is where I got from
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Pajot when we talked was that's the concentric motion. That's the faith is the bronze snake in numbers. Like that you're where you're
Mm-hmm.
taking the multiplicity and going down to one, and that becomes that test of faith. That's like
Mm-hmm.
that's the the moment of that's the thing that unifies, right? So that's actually um the that's Christ on the cross. That's the crucifixion, right? And
Mm-hmm.
from that, the thing that passes that test of faith, or going into the belly of the whale, right? Going into the underworld, being consumed by the underworld. Again, in Pinocchio, the thing that it and remember, just like most people who are crucified, they die and don't come back. Most of the people who went into Monstro's belly died and didn't come back, right? But it's what comes back from the underworld. What is
Mm-hmm.
resurrected is the good. What cannot be kept down is the good, the true, and the beautiful, right? That what passes
Mm-hmm.
the test of faith.
And that's what that is the arm that gets you out of the belly of the beast.
Yeah,
Is when you find it in the darkest place, and
yeah,
it's always inside you.
yeah,
Use your brain to get out of the belly of the beast.
yeah,
Then you and then it happens. That's why there is already a piece of bread of Jesus inside you, even if you're inside the belly of the beast, even if there is
Mhm.
also a snake.
Yeah. And that actually connects it to the other
That's it.
side of
Hmm.
Jesus, like that's the purest hope, right? The purest
Hmm.
hope is what survives in it survives the underworld, right? Which is goes back to like the nativity and the baby Jesus, right?
Mm.
It's like it was a time of of darkness for the Jews, and they were expecting the Messiah to come. And here comes the Messiah, and it's this pure hope, right? It's just like the little baby, right?
Hmm.
That changes the world. And that's just like what you're finding in the belly of the beast, right? Is that is that pure hope, that light that can change the world, right?
Yeah. And being there for kids is really, really a big deal.
Hmm.
Thinking on your free time. thinking about your kids, that that dedication is really applaudable. Applaudable? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Laudable. That
Uh,
is the word. Yeah, laudable.
is
But
my language is very
no, it's
limited.
you're very good. I just that's a really people don't usually use that word.
It's that's the true virtue that you put out on the internet.
Mm,
That's the value which I see, which is really really like I needed. That's why I like Jordan so much as well. At the beginning, he
mhm.
talked about him being a father and a husband. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
even though there were things that I kind of like, you need to check out the fact check yourself a little bit, but yeah, I looked beyond them because I looked for the virtues that I kind of treasurely hunt that I
Mm.
hunt as treasures out of the internet.
But I think that's
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I was so interested talking to you about that balance, because
Hmm.
I think you're right. Part of what I'm really trying to do here is by teaching dialogos, is I feel that the dialogos between the husband and the wife is what sustains the family, makes the family self-regulating. And that's what we need to bring back. And that means that charitable relationship both ways, that the the husband honors and respects the wife in her role, but also the wife honors and respects the husband in his role. And they have an understanding of not only their roles, but they're negotiating
Hmm.
that dialogically. Um, but in order to do that, like in order to really talk about that authentically, I have to bring in not just part of who I am that surrounds my family, right? And so
Hmm.
there's this, there's I have to press on the line, sort of dance on that line of privacy a lot. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about that issue, because
Hmm.
the thing, in a sense, like the authentic thing, the thing that I really want to bring onto the internet is is partly the most authentic part of myself, which is being a father, right? So I have to find a way to do that, um with and show that how discernment and dialogos connects to that, with while still, you know, being sensible and protecting the thing that is most valuable to me, which is also my family, right? So that's uh that's the balance I
Uh,
have to strike, and that's why I'm think that's I think that's why this conversation is so meaningful for me.
I mean, it is interesting though, because in order to maintain the privacy, but still talk to us a child, a
Mm,
son. Let's say if you want to address that little boy, you talk to a child actor boy, which is Logan Paul. Let's say like he grew up
mm,
already, but you kind of address him, and which you also did. Like
mm.
we address that child, like he's like a poster child for performer
Yeah,
kids, right? We
yeah.
address that. We did that. That's how we do it. We
Mm,
addressing the imaginary, like we addressing the snake on a pole. It's like the brown snake. Maybe a wrong analogy, but we addressing that representation. I might be also some sort of representation of some idea, maybe female form, right? Like,
mm,
and we are protecting the real person while we are talking, raising up issues that we want to be raised and to be on the internet. That's why TV shows were so popular, like
mm.
Home Improvement. It was not his real wife. Those were not his real kids. And Tim Allen never was married. But he actually taught a lot of fathers how to be a father.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. No,
shout
it's a
out
really
to
good
all
point.
home improvement.
And I think like you did a really good job of wrapping it up, and I sort of found what
Mhm,
why I wanted so much to have this conversation with you. So I think that this is dialogos is what I think
mhm,
we've done a good job achieving it here, because I feel like I've taken away something that's really valuable for myself, that like I'm closer to what's good, true, and beautiful in myself, but and I can't speak for you, but I think that I'm getting the feeling that you've done that as well. And I also think that we've
Absolutely.
had like this great conversation as well. We've set out what we've wanted to achieve. So I don't think I'm gonna have to do much editing on this video because I think that we have flowed and found the good, true, and beautiful of what we're doing as well. And this has all been discernment, and it's we've connected it to all these great things, tied it in a beautiful knot. And yes, I just want to thank you for that, Kara.
Thank you. The honor is mine. It was a great conversation for me. I do not get a lot of chances uh,
Hmm.
to have those conversations.
Yeah. Well, that's what we'll fix, right? We'll teach people how these conversations more often.
It was an honor. Um, Sponsored by Free Time. You all guys have it. It's 24 hours. And please check out my YouTube channel. I do it. I have a reason why I do it.
Mhm.
And the reason is not likes. I do want to get some messages out there and talk about song lyrics and food for thought.
Yeah, it's all great. Check out Kara's channel. Residuum reverteter, viva Cristo Rey.